All right, guys, are we back? Cool. I have a confession to make. The video that should have been the one you're watching now, I messed them up. I messed them up and used the wrong settings, so now I'm having to record again on the filters. I have turned off the Auburn Sounds, the sort of noisy noise gate, and we've gone back to this one. No, that should be 450. 450. Right, so then. And just to confirm, just because there's been sort of like a break in the continuity, that's my current settings. There was a little notch that I'd taken out. Can't be bothered to. In fact, you know what? I'm going to do it. That's definitely it. Bring it down like that. You can even widen up the bandwidth a little bit on that. Not too much, otherwise you'll start to sound a bit weird. But certainly don't overlook this EQ too much, especially if you've got some harsh tone somewhere. Anyway, right, so the next thing to add is a VST2 plugin, which we're going to call main comp. Main compression, basically. And we're going to go down here to Rea comp and open this up. If you remember back to when we had that little graph that was going and we were playing with the thingies and you saw the difference in the sound as it slid across the screen when we changed the settings, this is the same thing as that. Let's explain what's going on first. As you can see here, this is a graph which, as I talk, is going up and down. And then there's this here. Right, so this is your input signal. It shows you what's coming into this effect. And then this here is showing you what's going out, which might look the same. But if I was to put this up like that, sorry about that. I maybe could have just adjusted it a small amount, but I didn't. Right, so the threshold, remember, is like that bar that we dropped down on the more snazzier interface. Only sound which is above this level, which is shown on here, which is all this green stuff here, will be compressed. It won't touch anything lower down. Attack time, this is how long it takes to start compressing, and release is how long it takes to stop compressing. Now, as this is just speaking, you can put these to be very small, but you don't want them to be too small, especially the attack time. Otherwise, the compression will just slam on constantly and it will really distort your sound. So, for instance, oh no, you won't see anything yet. If I was to choose compression settings round about this, you can see what's happening there is we're starting to have something in this bar. This is sort of like, if you imagine that no change in volume would be at the top here, then when we're going over the compression settings, what it's doing is it's reducing the volume down by however much on this graph. That's one way of looking at it. It's an easy way of looking at it. As you can probably hear, there's been a bit of a change in the sound. We can also compress this quite a lot. Generally speaking, the further you compress it, the more you're crushing the sound, which in sort of like this range here between 1.5 and I don't know, about 4 gives you kind of a more professional sound, but after that it starts to feel a little overcompressed. And as you can see, what's happening here is as it's compressing, the sound isn't reaching as high on this graph anymore because the amounts which are over here are being crushed. So to combat that, you would need to then up this wet, which is basically, in terms of audio technology, wet is the processed signal and dry was the original signal. So you can mix and match them a little bit depending on what you want. And I believe that if I was to up the dry signal, that would also up that graph. Yes, it does. I would recommend, I'm going to go with a setting of about 2.3 is what I normally have. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I really need to tell you. I don't want to overcomplicate the video, but let me just check. These are the settings that I normally use, except I normally have +7 on that. Let's, I don't know if I did this in the last video. I'm sure that I did, but we'll put that up there again. Sad, but at least now you can see what's happening on the main graph there. Open, right, okay. So these are the settings, and we're actually over compressing. I should bring this up a bit, and we are done with this. There is one thing to remember and point out. And to do this, I'm going to have to increase the wet sound just a little more, like that. When there's no sound, the compression goes off. But what if there is a sudden sound, like a click? You see, that went all the way up on the graph to be up there. Here's my normal speech, but when I did that little click, because it happened and some sound got through in that 2 milliseconds, it went right up into that zone there. Do you see? There's still that little window there where things get through. Now, you could move this across like this, but you get better settings by your initial comp not being like that. So how do we catch that? Well, those are what's known as peaks in the sound, obviously. So what we're going to do is have another peak comp. Now, this is going to be a much more brutal version of the same plugin, because you can have more than one version of the same plugin in this chain. Right, so this just wants to catch the very top ends of the sound. Let's try and produce a yellow sound while we can see this now. Here's another click. Oh, that got all the way up into the red. Oof, bit harsh. Right, so what we want to do is try and prevent that from happening. Right, so this one does want the attack time of 0, and the release time can also be pretty small too. The compression ratio wants to be all the way over. So if I was to, these settings are brutal, absolutely brutal. If I was to drag down the threshold so more of the sound is compressed by this, you'd start to see, I mean, the sound volume would drop pretty instantly, but if you listen to what's left, you can hear that it's a bit distorted. It's a bit raggedy at that point. So we'll just move this up. We just want this to catch that very top end of the sound. So this peak one, if you're speaking as you're doing stuff, you want it so that it almost never gets anything. You say except there, that little, it caught that. And while it's still going into the yellow zone, why does it feel like it's not working? Oh, wait, I know. I've missed one setting. This pre-comp setting, you need this for your peaks. This is why it's not been doing anything. This is where it looks ahead at the sound that's coming in. So let's try now. You see how much lower those peaks are because it's looking ahead at the sound. What about a click? You see that? That's taken those away. And because you're not having those odd sounds going up there now, you can actually boost your original signal, which I could do to like this. And then it's about where it needs to be. Peaks! I can't even get it up there. Words I've never said. One other thing to think about. Record yourself speaking, because there's speaking, and then there's other elements of your voice which creep in, such as I might be swallowing close to my microphone, like, and then you have those sounds, and this compression will make all those background sounds and your breaths in to be much louder. It's a balancing act. It really is a balancing act. I would probably take that down a little bit, and hopefully that's not as bad. Right, so then the only final thing to do is after you've done that, you've cleaned up the sound with your low cut and your noise gate, and you've done the compression. You just want the final, and you might not even want this, but it's something I do. Put in another Raya EQ standalone, and you can use this to basically fine-tune the finished sound. Like you could increase the level of high noise if you wanted to. Or if you wanted to now, after having cut out all of the fan noise and everything, if you've got a fairly bassy voice, change this to band. You might want to do this. Now, you might think, well, why are we doing that there if we could just change the settings of the low cut? Basically, this low cut, before it goes through all this compression, like the noise gate, is just there to clean up the sound. You know, it's there for, if we remember, to cut out that fan noise. and maybe a couple of harsh frequencies. You want to be making sure you can always feel the high area sound, because otherwise you're not being as articulate. This is especially important if for some reason you can't bring your voice close to the microphone. Like you sat back, you've got a mic just out of shot, but you move around a little bit. You definitely want to bring that up if you can, but be careful, because you might have a nod sound or a beep that goes off every once in a while in your home environment, your recording studio. It will bring that out as well. Oh, I didn't name this. Rename it Final EQ. Final EQ. There we go. That is the end of the microphone setup. But it's not the last video, because you're going to be playing computer games. You'll probably want to watch this next video, which is about how to mix properly the game sound and your microphone sound. I don't want to play a game in real time. Well, I've already done it, but we'll pretend that I'm just about to go off and record a game, and then I'm going to import that as a media source, so we've got the background noise of that. So see you in the next video, where we're going to be talking about audio ducking. That's ducking, not docking.